Hello, everyone, and welcome to a virtual open house for Mahlum's new Portland studio. I'm Jeff Goldblatt with Mahlum Architects. And before we do begin this open house, I'd like to kick it over to Terry Campbell of Sustainable Northwest Wood to give us a little bit of a sponsor intro.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Campbell. I'm one of the co-founders of Sustainable Building Week, and I'm just here to kind of put this great event we're about to experience into some context of these 2 weeks of events we've had. We're Wednesday of the second week, so a little bit on the finishing straight. I hope attendees this morning have been able to attend some other events. We still have quite a few really good gangbusters come today after this Mahlum open house. The Carbon Leadership Forum is having a two-part session today. It is doing an event tomorrow. There is a zero workshop on diversity and inclusion and equity on Friday. And then wrapping up with a very interesting topic on decarbonizing commercial kitchens, hosted by this American Society of Plumbing and Engineers Portland chapter. So still some good stuff to see. We also are blessed to have a number of great sponsors that have been able to help fund this all-volunteer 2 week of events. And our goal with Sustainable Building Week is really to break down the silos amongst professionals to learn and network with each other to address the challenges that face our society and our environment. I think it's pretty common knowledge that silo thinking won't get us to a positive end game. And you'll learn from this event how that type of breaking down the silos was key to the success of this very beautiful project here in Southeast Portland. So with that, feel free to go to sustainablebuildingweek.com, sign up for our newsletter. We don't hit you too much, maybe 6 or 8 times a year with updates on what we're doing. And then we kind of like ramp up the communications as we get closer to the weeks. So thanks for the time for the intro, Jeff, and looking forward to this tour.
Thank you, Terry, for kicking things off for us. And I do want to say a big thank you to Sustainable Building Week for hosting such a stellar 2 weeks of great sustainability content. After brief introductions, we will take you on a 20-minute pre-recorded virtual tour of our office, touching on both design and LBC aspects of the project. Following the tour, we will have a 20-minute or so question and answer session. So please, if you do have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chats, and we will do our best to answer as many of the questions as we can. And if you could, please keep your mics on mute and your videos off. This will allow the presentation to run as smooth as possible. So let's go ahead and jump in. As I mentioned, my name is Jeff Goldblatt, and my role on the project varied as the project took its course. Acting as both project architect and project designer and Johnny on the spot for any material product research, I am proud to say, though, that I was there from the very first focus group to the very last punch list walk. It can't be understated how much this project truly was an incredible team effort, and it could not have been accomplished without many Mahlum players who are not on the phone call with us today, or the broader design and construction industry, which is why today, for the question and answer session, we wanted to have a range of specialties to help us answer all of your questions. So with me here today are Jay Hindmarsh, Jeff Hankins, and Terry Campbell. And now I will hand it off over to Jay to kick us off.
Good morning, everyone. Greeting you from wonderful West Seattle today. My role on the project that we're going to take a look at today was writing specifications, but also managing the Living Building Challenge certification process. And so that meant working with the team, the design team and the construction team to get us across the finish line. So lots of material vetting, but also near and dear to my heart, developing tools for everyone to use to make the process run smoothly. So I'm excited to be here and excited for the discussion. Jeff?
My name is Jeff Hankins with Perlo Construction. the senior manager, and I was a project manager on this project with our team members, Josh Swake and Corey Stark, as well as our office staff back here. So there's definitely a team effort, including our Perlo team, but the coordination with Mahlum and vendors like Terry to get all this done and coordinated. Happy to be here and happy to talk about this great project.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Terry Campbell again, putting on one hat, taking off another with Sustainable Northwest Wood. We were one of the suppliers who was lucky enough to come onto this exciting project. I can't remember the exact initiation, if they found us on the web or through ILFI collateral or what, but we were really happy to embrace the project with a lot of enthusiasm. Even when we were asked for questions that we didn't have the answers for, we take personal pride here at this company in delving into both product material origins and the ingredients in those products. And we're not so intimidated to think that everyone has any of the answers, and we don't have a magic wand, but we definitely want to provide as much accurate information as we can, and we did that, and we're really proud of the work that Perlo and Mahlum pulled together.
Awesome, thank you guys. And so before we do hop into the virtual tour, we wanted to give a little bit of context on the project timeline. Back in 2017 is when we really dug in and began some staff outreach, asked a lot of really in-depth questions. We really wanted to make sure that this new office met the high standards of all the staff members in the office. We signed the lease on September 4th. We had our permits on January 16th. We connected and had our notice to proceed on March 22nd with Perlo Construction. They began on April 15th of 2019. We had our temporary certificate of occupancy November 15th, and we occupied it November 25th of 2019. We then had our audit on March 6th and were officially LBC certified on March 17th. And then a lot of other things happened in 2020, and here we are today, which is why we're having a virtual open house. But we're still very happy to share everything, all of the great accomplishments that we did achieve. So before we do kick it into the video, we did want to ask a quick question. So bear with me, this is the first time I've hit the poll button, but if you could answer the question, how familiar are you with LBC? Let us know. And I think I'm going to let this poll roll. So if you want to answer it while the video is playing, without any further ado, welcome to Mahlum's new office.
Hey, Jeff, I don't know if other folks are having this problem. I'm not hearing the audio.
Sorry, everybody. Let's see here.
Thanks for your patience, folks. I assure you, we have run through this a number of times. We never have any technical difficulties. So this is awesome.
No, yeah. So
We'll get it going.
Jake, can you remind me how to
I think
include
when you
audio?
do the screen, yeah, when you hit the screen share, for the share screen, there's
computer
a
sound.
checkbox.
There it is.
So
Okay. Sorry, everybody. Let's try that again. Welcome to Mahlum Architects' new work environment, the Portland Studio. Conceived as a true community asset, the PDX Studio is a physical manifestation of our mission and vision towards creating enduring communities to support the lives of future generations. It is our hope that it will serve to celebrate our culture and commitment to our people, to the environment, to our work, and to the community that inspires us. Deeply rooted in the Pacific Northwest since 1948, strong design values guide every aspect of the firm. We strive to design architecture that is poetic, enduring, and inspiring. By creating spaces that consistently express the culture, aspirations, and identity of the communities we serve, the distinctive character of each is honored. As a new vision began to take shape within our firm, our commitment to our broader community also deepened, as was our desire to walk our talk from a value standpoint. Ever present was our ongoing commitment to community. Through active engagement in service projects, we firmly believe we are creating positive impacts for individual growth and purpose. This commitment, in many ways, served as the foundation of a new vision, one that we wanted to celebrate and share every day. The search for a new office space began with a series of listening sessions with staff to understand what they wanted in a new work environment. Staff shared what was working and not working in the current office and what ideas and priorities they deemed critical in a new office workspace. A top 10 list was developed, which underscored must-have conditions of any new office space. When the search committee first discovered the custom block redevelopment and began assessment and studying of the opportunities it presented, Mahlum knew we had found a diamond in the rough. While this building is now just a shell of a past life as a metal stamping facility, that history, character, and patina of an industrial spirit still lingered. Not only was there beauty in the exposed heavy timber columns and beams and the raw concrete industrial aesthetic, the firm was captivated by the authenticity that this raw space provided and the opportunity to find connection in a new inner East Side community. Lastly, the space could support the wishes of the staff that would invest so much of their personal and professional time here. It was a win-win situation. Mahlum supports a deep cultural current of environmental stewardship with a legacy of creating sustainable architecture, including 3 AIA National Coat Top 10 awards. Embarking on a new office design provided a truly unique opportunity to lead with our values and to put forth an audacious goal, the Living Building Challenge, often regarded as the world's most sustainable building certification. In the words of the International Living Futures Institute, the Living Building Challenge is foremost a philosophy and advocacy tool. This goal required us to lean on a small group of industry experts and to trust that a pioneering spirit and tenacity of purpose would allow us to reach our goal. Mahlum achieved LBC petal certification by meeting the requirements of the following 4 petals: place, materials, equity, and beauty. For the health and happiness petal, strict VOC requirements were adhered to, and biophilic design was incorporated throughout. In preparation for your tour, we wanted to first orient you to the PDX Studio, and secondly, explain the tour format. We have organized the virtual tour pathway to flow through the office, making stops along the way to highlight spaces and details that underscore design concepts or LBC-related initiatives. We used a variety of tools, from professional photographs, digital graphics, handheld video recordings, and finally, Matterport software, which we use to take 360 scans of the entire office. Building community relationships is foundational to Mahlum DNA. This starts at our front door. When we took the keys to this tenant space, the only way in was through a private building corridor. To ensure that we had a public face to our neighborhood, we opened up a portion of the west exterior wall to install a public-facing entrance that is accessible to all. Opening the door to a space is essentially your first impression and introduction to Mahlum, and we wanted this experience to feel a sense of history. Working with Salvage Works, a local organization that harvests quality wood from dilapidated buildings, we were able to acquire old-growth Doug fir tongue and groove floorboards from a small structure built in the 1940s at Fort Vancouver. This front door literally embodies the spirit of partnerships we embraced to meet the rigorous demands of LBC. Key to the design and sourcing of raw materials was our partnerships with like-minded community vendors such as Salvage Works PDX and Sustainable Northwest Wood. Beyond raw materials, over a dozen unique trade subcontractors worked with us to integrate all of the unseen pieces and parts for this custom-built assembly. From door hardware to low-voltage wiring, all vetted for Red List compliance. It took a village. Visitors are greeted by a friendly smile as soon as they enter. This is more obvious when not working from home. Our receptionist sits at the headwaters of the office, and the reception area was designed as a completely movable system to support the continued evolution of our work environment. You might have asked yourself, what was that peculiar shelf we saw as we entered the vestibule? Careful study of the visual safety at our entry revealed the need for screening. A playful shelving system was designed to provide the visual screening and to allow a place for personal expression. This shelving system, affectionately called the curio cabinet, houses small tchotchkes from each staff member. The curio cabinet has already become a playful expression of who we are at the front door, greeting each visitor as they pass through our doors. A fundamental shift in workplace design was required when we transitioned from our old office to our new. The outdated, inflexible, and overly generous workstations needed to be replaced with spaces better suited to our dynamic workflow. One small example of this is the small breakout space that allows for spontaneous conversations to take place. While the PDX studio is nearly identical in square footage to our previous office, the allocation of public to private space has been flipped. Meeting the #1 criteria from our staff survey, daylight and views are achieved through the expansive window walls. The abundant daylight is a refreshing change from our previous office. While this is a welcome feature, the abundance of daylight and views brought with it a new and interesting challenge. Provide a sense of security and privacy with the exposure we gained at the street level. Providing a visual screen between the workstations and the sidewalk became an essential component to providing a safe and secure working environment. This challenge quickly emerged as an opportunity, one that incorporated art, biophilia, and community connections. Wary of installing film on the glazing, which would not be transparent, plants strike the right balance of creating a sense of security while not eliminating views to the outside. Using plants as a screening element both helps with our visibility concerns as well as supports our efforts to engage with the art community in the creation of custom ceramic pots. Collaborating with Paige Wright, a local ceramic artist, to create the ceramic vessels was an early step to connect with our new artisan neighbors. Paige worked closely with the Mahlum design team to throw pots that fit within the new office aesthetic. Simple shapes and glazing ratios were chosen to express the variety in clay types, light brown, red, and chocolate. With 3 vessel sizes, 4 vessel shapes, 3 glazing choices, and 5 varieties of plants, a wonderful mix of color and texture livened up the workstation studio. One of the many important benefits of having plants in the office is the effect on our physiological health. In biophilic design terms, the added vegetation achieves the following: views and vistas. With 120 feet of window sill, views to the outside from nearly any part of the office includes the plants and the handcrafted ceramic pots in which they reside. Light and shadow. Shadows change and evolve throughout the day. Evolved human relationships. Screening provides a sense of protection and privacy from a busy street. And indoor air quality. The Sansevieria laurentii, commonly known as the snake plant, is especially good at purifying the air, removing toxins such as formaldehyde, xylene, and nitrogen oxides. Views of the plants and to the outside can be experienced from nearly every point in the office. Looking across the office, you can see we left as much of the existing wood structure exposed as possible. The rich color, tone, and texture of the Douglas fir structure add to the biophilic qualities of the space. One of the many important aspects of the Living Building Challenge is telling our story. To achieve this goal, we created 3 storyboards that are mounted in locations throughout the office and describe aspects of our firm and our LBC journey, which include equity, material health, and community. We have arrived at one of these storyboards, the Equity Petal Board. This board communicates just a few of the approaches Mahlum took to ensure our space is safe and accessible to all, supporting our values towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. A full-height door actuator at our main entry accommodates individuals who have special needs to entry. Our community space is not just an asset to us, but to the broader community as well. We hope that this space supports local nonprofits and our neighbors to strengthen their missions. We share gender-inclusive restrooms and shower facilities with the other tenants. Our workstations were designed with flexibility in mind, including sit-stand. And all of the workstations have equitable access to views, daylight, and natural ventilation. The team spaces were another programmatic innovation that came from deep listening to the desires of the Mahlum community. We wanted a devoted area for projects to live and flourish, to stay pinned up for all to see, and to allow for a flexibility in design methodology. This collaborative environment required tools and technologies at the team's fingertips to accelerate and maximize the collaborative design process. As you can already see, the team spaces were a home run idea. When a project begins, the project team moves into the team space. Homosote on the east walls allows renderings and sketches to be tacked. Marker board paint on the west walls supports quick diagrams and storyboarding. Powerful computers connected to large displays foster the all-important teleconference meetings. Furniture is kept simple for flexibility. Soft materials on the floor and the ceiling provide acoustic comfort, and large sliding tackable panels to the north allow for adjustable permeates. Just to the south of the team spaces are the individual workstations. Here we do most of our independent and individually focused tasks. With the surge of flexible workstations in the market, Mahlum had already been experiencing with sit-stand tables and hearing passionate feedback about staff preferences. We needed to get this right. In order to invest so aggressively in collaborative work environments, it required hyper-efficient yet highly flexible workstations. What we came up with is an innovative approach to the benching structure. Each row is comprised of 8 workstations, 4 on each side of a shared spine. A durable, strong steel shelf runs down the center, creating an anchor point to mount our monitors to articulating arms. We designed this shelf with multiple mounting options. Individuals can move articulating monitor arms to the left or right, up and down, customized to individual preferences. With the monitor mounted to a robust articulating arm that has 20 inches of height adjustability, each workstation has sit-stand accommodations. We tested many prototypes with the staff during design. Our experimentation and prototyping confirmed that the tallest to the shortest staff person would be comfortable. Fabricating such a customized approach again provided an opportunity to support our local community. Mahlum collaborated with metal fabricators Flux Design and Quarter 20 to ensure our ideas could be realized and that every ounce of the fabrication would meet the strict requirements of LBC. Healthy buildings rely on the building blocks of healthy material selection. Moving into the materials library, we come across our second storyboard. This is our Materials Transparency Manifesto. To embody the Living Building Challenge philosophy of transparency, this board lists every material used on this project for staff and visitors to see how it achieved the required level of scrutiny. Declare and Living Product Challenge certified products constituted over 30% of materials budget for this project. In addition to rewarding these manufacturers' early investment in established transparency labels, we are convinced that market transformation lies with the advocacy and working with new manufacturers in acquiring disclosure of new products and sharing the tenets of LBC. These are documented with the material inventory and red list affidavit materials. We wanted visitors to learn some of the lessons that we did. Only with honest and open communication can we make change happen in the industry. Vetting this list for the materials petal is considered one of the more difficult asks of petal certification. This truly could not have been accomplished without an integrated design and construction team. Vetting and documenting hundreds of products requires support from designers to subcontractors. Perlo Construction weaved all of these challenges into the beautiful project we have today. Designing for resilience begins by choosing to make a small footprint. We had many reasons to select an existing building as our new home, but one that resonates loudly in Mahlum's pursuit of sustainability is the avoidance of construction-related CO2. The project achieved net zero embodied carbon emissions. To account for the 32.2 metric tons of CO2 related to material manufacturing and construction, Mahlum purchased Green E certified carbon offsets through TerraPass. Navigating the world of wood can be a perplexing task. Fortunately, we had the help of Sustainable Northwest Wood to guide us on our journey. We are very fortunate to call the Pacific Northwest our home, as the area has been and continues to be a leading source of renewable and restorative wood products. All of the wood used in this project, which includes our wall studs, our kitchen finishes, our cabinet substrate, our windowsills, our work surfaces, our adjustable shelving, and our doors, was either FSC certified or salvaged, and nearly all of it came from our home state, Oregon. The materials library itself was an opportunity not only to support the design process, but to promote education and advocacy around truly healthy material selection. When we moved from the old office to the new, we cleaned the shelves, literally and physically. We made the decision that this library was going to reflect our pursuit of designing for health. Material health was already an important conversation before we began designing the PDX studio. But going through the LBC vetting process increased our knowledge base tremendously. We wanted to make sure that this information made its way into the staff's hands, and more importantly, into the projects we designed for our clients. We created a rating system with easily identifiable stickers that includes the positive characteristics of each product. The staff can easily identify what works best for their needs. We have also created a trifold handout that illustrates which materials our library accepts, which ones we do not, and what the path looks like to have products on our shelves. This is our advocacy tool to inform material representatives, manufacturers, and to do our part to move the marketplace. We find ourselves at the back door, and through this door, you can see bikes hanging on the wall. In support of healthy lifestyles and emissions-free transportation, Mahlum supports over 70% of our staff who arrive by foot or by bicycle. In this shared common area, to go along with the secure covered bike storage, there's also gender-inclusive washroom facilities, with both gender binary restrooms as well as private single-use restrooms and shower stalls. 2 small privacy nooks are also provided for 2-person meetings and conversations. While we wanted to strengthen our connection with the neighborhood by placing our front door on the street edge, we also wanted to ensure that we weren't turning our back to the building. We opened up a portion of the wall to ensure we had strong visual connectivity with our fellow tenants passing through the hallway. Before we head down the conference room corridor, let's take a moment to reorient ourselves. We have taken you through the vestibules to reception, into the flex space, stepped inside a team space, took a stop at a workstation, passed through the materials library, and into the building corridor. We have now come back in and are standing near the materials library facing the conference room block. Adjacent to the team spaces to the north are the enclosed meeting rooms. We wanted to provide a diversity in meeting room sizes to accommodate small, medium, and large group functions. All rooms have integrated technology that allows staff with the touch of a button to turn on the lighting and audiovisual equipment, and all are acoustically enhanced to facilitate good collaboration. Window walls into all meeting rooms promote visual access and allow meetings to feel connected. Since the building was originally occupied by the custom stamping company and the space housed large pieces of equipment suited for large-scale manufacturing, we named our meeting rooms and common areas after the manufacturing equipment as a whimsical homage to this history. Staff now are able to reserve the Powermatic, Tyco, Raster, and Milford conference rooms. Of the entire office, the room that represents Mahlum's culture and values best is right here, our Marvel community space. This area is intended to be our living room. our dining room, our kitchen, our home. It is here where we will invite our neighbors, our friends, and the community at large to gather, break bread, and share ideas. Already, in our short term here in this new building, we have hosted an ACE Mentor class, supported the local nonprofit Black United Fund with an all-day charrette, explored virtual reality buildingscapes, hosted an ILFI happy hour, and celebrated the holidays. The project, from start to finish, was a dynamic challenge to be sure, but through the process of listening intently to our staff and leveraging our passions and skills to create an environment that we can be proud to share was worth the investment. When we think of the return on our investment, we think less about the financial implications and more of the investment we made in who we are and what we represent. In the short time we have occupied the PDX studio, we have received many accolades and business opportunities through telling our story. We look forward to a not too distant post-COVID future when we can return and reignite our passion and purpose for empowering our community through design and the fellowship that exists here in Mahlum. And this concludes our tour. It was an honor to share with you Portland's first living building. Thank you all for joining us on that tour of our new Portland studio. And now we can open it up to any questions that anyone may have. If you'd like to throw your question into the chat, feel free, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and raise your hand, that would be fine as well.
We know that Terry likes really, really hard questions, so I would like to, I'd love somebody to try and stump him or anybody else here, because and we've got some topics, of course, to talk about, and maybe we could get started with those, Jeff. And I think one thing that we certainly wanted to share for each of us was really around some of our most impactful lessons learned, given that we represent different sides of the design and construction equation.
I think maybe I can jump in there with a lesson learned, or it was really for me more of a reiteration that teamwork and collaboration and the willingness to just not give up is what made this project a success in the end. And I'll give you an example, and this was the collaboration part, that our casework sub we found out needed to be FSC certified. That was to keep the chain of custody intact through the process. So this is typically thousands of dollars. But through our communication through Mahlum and with Terry, we were able to get them under the umbrella for Terry and able to get them FSC certified to keep the chain of custody intact and maintain that. So it was a great lesson, and just to keep our communication.
Yeah, and I can go ahead and pat Terry on the back as well. The jumping in and trying to understand the different types of formaldehyde that are in plywoods and composite woods is as I mentioned in the video, very daunting. And I think what the relationship that we've built with Terry and State of Northwest Wood represents is you really do have to lean on your community partners. We had a wonderful time connecting with Paige Wright, the ceramic artist, as well as the metal fabricators. In each iteration, it was definitely a team aspect. I think even working with Foliage, who helped us supply the plants, we connected with them and tried to understand what the benefits were going to be to try to provide as much biophilic design in the space as possible. And I do see some questions. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, that's a good point. I actually was going to say the same thing. So I was going to hit one of the questions. Thanks. There's a question in the chat. And if folks don't know, there's a button down at the bottom with the little chat bubble that you can hit, and it should pop up if you're interested in typing something there or seeing what the questions are. But the question about how do we talk to clients about material health goals as a firm, I think what Jeff mentioned in the tour is that, kind of our journey around healthy materials and transparency, not just in materials, but as an organization, started well before Living Building Challenge. And so I think our biggest effort in that is really to make sure that material health goals have a seat at the table from day one. So right at the eco charrette, in that integrated design discussion, in the call with the mechanical engineer, right? Like making sure that everyone's on the same page about, what the firms and the team and the project, and often maybe even the client expectations around transparency or material optimization is. And I think, part of that is also, I think it's great that we can hold up projects like this that are Living Building Challenge certified, and it'd be great if every project that we pursue or work on could do that. And obviously that's not the case. But I think we've done a lot of work to integrate sustainable products and transparency into our specs on all projects. And so, especially for the most prevalent, chemicals of concern like vinyl and PVC, really just not even asking and taking those kinds of things out of our project specs and out of our repertoire when possible in our design process.
Great, thank you, Jay. I do see a question about the design process and the biophilic design elements. I do remember in the design process, we have a series of team spaces that are just to the north side of the workstations, and we wanted to think about the relationship of what that represents to those that are passing by in the neighborhood. And we had messaging in mind. We wanted to make sure that people understood what we were doing in the space, and sustainability and biophilic design is definitely something important, an important value to Mahlum. And I do remember early in the process, we had thought about potentially maybe a green wall above that. I think we moved away from that because we wanted to be efficient with we wanted to provide the most amount of value to the space. And in the end, we found that providing plants along the perimeter of the wall was the best value for us in biophilic design. And yes, there are operable windows. I think it alternates between a fixed window and an operable window. I believe everyone that is sitting at a workstation is within 30 feet of an operable window. So we're all very thankful for that. That's a big change from our previous office in the Perlo.
There's a great question in the chat about have we as an organization adjusted our products purchased for the office, so more on the operations side. And what I'll say is the part of the Living Building Challenge framework is in the health and happiness petal, is to look at that we are intending to maintain all these great materials in the space. And so yes, we did vet those against the standards in the Living Building Challenge for that. But I think also, even just this process and the just organizational certification process that we went through about a year before we started this project has kind of really challenged us to think about our operations and examine, what are some more sustainable ways that we can select coffee or cleaning services, all of that. And so I think in many ways the philosophy of LBC on this project has also reinforced a lot of the operational processes, transparency. And so we're always looking at ways that we as an organization can continue to improve our sustainable efforts and reduce our footprint. Great question.
And I do see a question about acoustics. Acoustics was a big conversation through the design process, and we approached acoustics in different manners in different spaces. In the community space, we actually did sneak some F-sorb material up in between the joist bays. So if we do have a larger event of around 50 people in that space, which does not have carpet below it, we would try to have as much sound absorption as possible in that space. In the office space, we did opt to not put acoustic insulation into the joist bays. It was a balance of trying to promote biophilic design and the beautiful quality that wood gives, that warmth that it provides. And we weren't quite certain what we were going to get into when we moved into the space. Working with the acoustician, we did know that a lot of the issue will be kind of face-to-face a noise, that if you're sitting directly across from somebody, that's going to be your biggest concern. What we have realized, having lived in this space for a short amount of time, is that acoustics have actually been very comfortable. I think it does have a little bit to play with the venting system. Just kind of has a subtle hum to itself, and it's a little bit of white noise. And I think the open nature of the space, it allows for sound to dissipate into other areas of the office. But yeah, great question. And actually, maybe Jeff Hankins can touch a little bit on how we approached acoustics in the conference room, as well as in the marketing space, and how we managed to get perforated chip into both of those locations.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It was a fun challenge. We had the acoustical design that was, from the beginning, but dealing with perforated gyp on the ceiling was a unique aspect. And not only that, but dealing with all the penetrations through there as well, and to make them look like they were actually on purpose. And with the AV system, the lights, the sprinklers, and so on. And it also has the border of just standard drywall there as well. And some of the challenges that we ran into was one, mocking it up, but two, getting into all the details and all the little products that go into even just putting up drywall in a perforated system. And these walls for the conference rooms, and I think the marketing area as well, they were SDC rated, and they plywood and insulation, and we got down to the end, just some minor details that we had to change right at the end to make everything work. And it's all part of the fun and challenges that we go through.
We haven't heard much from Terry here, so I was gonna ask him if he could either share a really impactful lesson learned, or maybe stump all of us with his wisdom on wood products, or FSC 100% versus mix, what that means. But
yeah, you bet. Thanks, Jay, for the opportunity. I really felt like, as I mentioned in the intro to Sustainable Building Week, this is sort of a continual theme for me. It has been for a few years, and it really is about project teams reaching out into the supply chain. When these projects have such ambitious goals, it's not good enough to write specs, to do a little bit of research and write specs and just hope for the best. That's a little bit of a Hail Mary, if you will. And the sort of more successful approach would be, even though it might be scary because it's not normal, it hasn't been the traditional business flow, is to bring suppliers on board early. And that way a lot of the vetting can happen. So that's kind of researching suppliers who are kind of qualified would be a good step. And then as you're interviewing them or talking to them, it's kind of also important to find those that are enthusiastic. Because enthusiasm goes a long way. I've been saying this also as a recent theme for me. Just there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily have the interest in learning about all the ins and outs of the different chemicals in plywood glue. And then there's some of us who are just kind of keen on trying to make less impact on our business practice, and that's a place we can do it. In the wood products business, we're somewhat blessed to not have as many ingredients as a workstation, so to speak. but at the same time, we also have a heavier responsibility in the origins of where our materials come from, because the forests that they originate in, they do a lot more than just produce wood. They provide us with a lot of ecosystem services. So there's a heavy responsibility there to make sure we're sourcing the right materials. But I think that sort of enthusiasm for us is why we do get called on by a lot of Living Building Challenge projects, because they do oftentimes, they don't have 5 years to research and plan these projects, right? They need to do it in the normal project timeline, and they want people to plug in who are somewhat up to speed already. So, but on this project, I guess the other takeaway lesson was, to Jeff Hankins' point earlier, there was some market transformation that happened. There were 2 small local casework manufacturers that were able to join an FSC group certificate for small manufacturers, which defrays the cost amongst about 100 different manufacturers, as opposed to an individual cost. And that's an approach that allows for smaller businesses who can be very innovative and cutting edge to get involved. And I think that type of thinking also needs to flow out into other product certifications vis-a-vis, LCAs and EPDs, because those, as they become more required or favored, it's going to ostracize a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, because those certifications are very expensive. So finding ways to for the industry to help these medium and smaller manufacturers get there will definitely make more products available that have those attributes and those certifications. And it'll also, it'll also help give a business edge to these size companies, which there are in the United States. I feel like the last time I looked, about 70% of the manufacturers, and this is all industries in the United States, have 10 employees or less. So if you think the manufacturing landscape is all humongous plywood mills and sawwood mills and vinyl mills and all that stuff, there's actually way more smaller and medium-sized manufacturers out there. So.
Thanks, Terry. Jeff G. So I was wondering, Terry mentioned something that I think is pretty emblematic of the project and the process and in the workstations. And I think I was wondering if maybe we could talk a little bit about, I think also, because I haven't heard, well, did it cost more and did it take longer, right? And I know I have my opinion that healthy building materials really shouldn't cost more and usually don't. I think what did prove out is that on a project like this, the duration did creep from our original expectations. So there's a time cost, or time and cost to that. But I wonder, Jeff G., if you could talk a little bit about the decision of the team, right, for the custom-built workstations, really, to look at some pre-made options with a declare label, right? That might have been the easy button, but then take on all of the kind of work and coordination and advocacy around working with small fabricators to find products that were cleared, and then working with them to build the inventories, right, where you literally list out all of the individual chemicals in each of those products.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're hitting on some of the big points there. We had a lot of conversations and a lot of design charrettes, and we looked at different products, and we tried to identify what was going to be our best strategy to one of the bigger investments in the office, which are the workstations, something that we're going to use every day, something that has significant cost value and also has a significant material impact. And what we came to realize is that to hit something that was very durable, something that was very flexible, and something that we could ensure that we could get 100% material transparency for, we opted to work with local fabricators to create our own workstations. And I happen to think that was a fantastic experience. It was a lot of fun. We really got to get our hands dirty with kind of the design of something that's very tangible and work with every day. And I know that Jay and I have joked on this project before that this was really the project of a million spreadsheets. And that was just one example where I had to create 6 different spreadsheets just to kind of make sure that we had all of the vetting completed for the workstation. And we try to keep it as simple as possible. It's a wood surface, which Terry helped us find. It was, I believe, Columbia Forest Products is the manufacturer of the plywood, and the type is MPX, and we knew exactly that it was not going to have formaldehyde because it was made from a soy-based glue called Pure Bond. And then we used Homosote as our tackable material, just on the back edge of the plywood. The rest of it was steel. But when you work with steel, you also have to make sure that you get all of your mill reports from the manufacturers, and that can be a bit of a challenge as well. Because location is very important when it comes to validating materials and making sure that that all of our materials and products are coming within a certain radius of our project location. But overall, a very fun experience actually to design your own workstation.
I was wondering, thank you, Jeff, maybe to the other Jeff Hankins. You know, this is a 7,500 square foot tenant improvement project, right? And I was wondering if maybe you could speak from a contractor's perspective, just a little bit about, you know, because the project pursued and achieved certification under the Living Building Challenge, you know, what was different from your guys' approach, or how you would budget the job, or, you know, what kind of additional resources did you have to bring to the table for a project like this?
Sure, yeah. So a project like this that was non-LBC, we would probably look at not quite as much project management time, and then we wouldn't really have a field engineer on this type of project. But because of all the paperwork, and we thought we knew how much it was going to be, and we thought we knew what it was going to entail, we increased project management time, and we added a PE at 3/4 time. Now, the reality is he was 100% of the time through the duration of the project. So it was a great learning experience, I think, for all of us. And the challenges was more the material vetting. And like Jeff G was just talking about with the furniture of, you know, the steel mill reports and, you know, the plywood, and then the finish on the plywood, and then I think there was finish on the steel, right? So, you know, you're tracking down all these items, and that was really our biggest challenge. But also, I think when you look at it at the end, that Jeff in the video showed the material lists, that's also the most rewarding, because that was that was blood, sweat, and tears into that.
And we're down to our last 5 minutes. I think if anyone's got a burning question, we still have time, so feel free to hop on and unmute yourself or throw it in the chat.
I feel like I wouldn't mind, while we're waiting on that, Jay, just to follow up on Jeff Hankins' point about the blood, sweat, and tears on the material list. I think the reason the materials pedal, and so I'm also involved with the collaborative here, the ILFI collaborative. And what we hear a lot is the materials pedal is so hard because a lot of this ground has not been broken before. And it sounds like Mahlum has a repository of knowledge in Portland that is unprecedented, because this is our first materials pedal. So I imagine industry knowledge sharing is something you may be up for doing, because we want to have more of these projects come down the pipe. And I feel like one of the added cost is that initial vetting, and what the hope is over time that vetting time just gets shorter and shorter, and there's more off-the-shelf products. I also would kind of give a pitch to those companies who've been through this process before, as far as both on the GC side or an architect side or a material supplier side, that those that know the right products and how to answer the transparency questions can save you time. Versus going, you know, but we also need to teach some new people. So it's a bit of I won't call it a cat and mouse game, but but yeah, it's a bit of you know, making sure there's enough experience on the team that it doesn't bog it down, but bringing new people along at the same time. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. That's a really great point. And I know that when we did decide to pursue the Living Building Challenge, we uh, discussed amongst ourselves how much outside help we wanted to bring in. We ultimately did decide that doing the effort and doing the research ourselves was going to be invaluable, and a lot of that information, a lot of that knowledge base stays within the office, and we can disperse that and disseminate that information to other projects. But we did lean a little bit on a company called Britt Green that helped us kind of document and manage a lot of the data that we had to input, as well as do some research on some more difficult asks on the electrical and mechanical side. But as Terry was saying, we really do want to share the information that we did learn. The whole team does, from Perlo to Sustainable Northwest Wood and Mahlum. We want to host the community in our community space, and we're hoping that in the future, past when we're not all working from home and we can gather socially, we really do hope that our community space, that we can open up the doors and invite you all and invite our friends in to have further conversations about this topic.
Yeah, I think I'll just add really quickly, Jeff, maybe before you close here, given the timing. I think the kind of community networking that's built around material transparency and this, embodied carbon and responsible sourcing in the Pacific Northwest here, we're really blessed, and I think it's a pretty un-architect-y thing to do, to share all of your trials and tribulations, and I think LBC really embodies that and encourages us all to just be more forthcoming with what we're learning and how we can all build up from each other's lessons learned. And if you're going to dive into LBC or think about inspiring kind of LBC ethos on a project, really reach out to those that have been in this space and struggled. I think folks are more than willing to share and help be mentors. And so I think it's great that the market is moving. There's still a long way we need to go, but I feel like we've got some great momentum.
I agree. I think even with this process, part of our research and digging into the materials and the material inventories and was talking to all the suppliers and getting them on board. So each project, I think it just makes it better, and we get the education around.
Great. Thank you, Jeff Hankins. Thank you, Terry Campbell. Thank you, Jay Hindmarsh. And thank you all for joining us today for our virtual open house. As I mentioned a few moments ago, we really do look forward to having more in-office events, but thank you for your patience in joining us virtually. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of Sustainable Building Week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.